Okay, we've got a few people that have just jumped on, so welcome everyone. We'll do some quick intros and then we'll get into it. So my name's Matt, based in Sydney currently. I lived in Tokyo for around 9 years until 2022. I'm back in Australia now, but I am back in Japan quite often, at least twice a year, running events, attending startup conferences like Sushi Tech, and I've helped a bunch of people land in Japan or think about if Japan is really for them, as well as when I was there, I was running my own business, several of my own businesses. The most recent one was a coaching for startups and founders across a lot of different stages up to kind of Series A. So yeah, I've seen a fair bit of stuff happen over there. And now I'm just helping more one-on-one market entry from the tech sales and marketing side. Tyson is on the ground. And Tyson, you want to give us your quick little intro?
Sure. I've been here for 20 years, probably around actually 22 years now, so half my life. I founded 4 businesses. 2 of them are B2C and 2 of them are B2B. So I have a pretty good experience with both types. And I've helped set up more than 80 companies in Japan, and I've helped grown more than 50 through both businesses that I'm currently doing. And yeah, so regarding the setup side, anything regarding incorporation, visas, banks accounts, taxes, we take care of all of that. And on the sales and marketing side, we help with websites, sales pamphlets, and helping people get their initial customers in Japan.
So ideally, we'll keep this session interactive. So if there is 1 or 2 questions, we'll get to them, but we'll also have time for Q&A at the end as well. And as we go, if there is a burning question, don't hesitate to type it in the chat or jump off mute and interrupt. So the reason for doing this, I think it's kind of timely now. It's almost about 9 months since they changed the rules for the business manager visa back in October last year. And Tyson has a pretty good read now of kind of how that's impacted incoming applications for the business manager visa, but also just generally, how Japan has probably been seen or has transformed into a different kind of market for people. Before the October 2025 changes, it was a little bit easier for people with a new idea to enter Japan. These days, now with the new changes, I think you really have to really think about if Japan is a market for you, and you really need to kind of have some traction at home, have some money behind you, have a bit more patience to invest your time and effort into the country if Japan is really a serious market that you're considering. So the changes in October, we'll go through them quickly in this session as well, but I think they did change how Japan is. And so I think it's a good time kind of to revisit what Japan looks like now in 2026. So let's get into it. We've done a quick intros and we'll, talk a little bit more about what we cover specifically as we go. But I think kind of the key objectives of today, or the key things we want to cover, is why now. I guess we've talked about that a little bit. What products have worked, what hasn't, and we can give you a few examples. I know Tyson in particular runs his Scaling Japan podcast, and he's covered a little bit of that as well in some of the guests that he's featured as well. So I'm sure he'll talk a little bit about that in that section. This is one that I get a lot of inquiries about. Should I even go to Japan? And especially when you're earlier stage, I would say most of the time, no, because you probably want to be proving yourself at home first before you even think about moving elsewhere. We'll look at a bit deeper into what setup is, the sales and marketing approach. Tyson can give you lots of thoughts about that. I can talk to you about that also from being on the ground. We'll talk about a little bit about maybe a recommended way, kind of a structured approach or a structured order into coming into Japan. And we're going to get started in your Q&A. So let's get into it.
Awesome.
So yeah, why this conversation now? Tyson, I think it's good going back to the changes in October, and then, it's kind of being covered across the news. Applications for business manager visa, I think I even saw you post about it, have dropped like 94%. It's one of those figures that you see across a lot of the kind of English and Japanese media articles that focus on business. So tell us a little bit more about that statistic and what you're seeing on the ground as well.
Yeah, so the basic change was before you needed 5 million yen and a private office. It has 6x, and now you need 30 million yen, a private office, and a full-time Japanese staff member. And so the stats were that it was a decrease of 94 to 96 applications per month, and they were down to now 70 per month. So we have a pretty good grasp of this because we do about one business manager visa a month on the new system. So I always joke around that we have a 1.5 to 2% market share. It's just one client a month. But
so for the Aussies out there, 5 million yen is around 45,000 Aussie. 30 million yen is probably around 280, 290 Aussie at the current exchange rate. If you're in the US, that's probably around 200. What's that? 220 US or 230 US.
It's about 200,000 US.
200,000 US. Okay.
So in the past, like we really saw before the changes, we're doing, I think we did 30 to 40 visas. I think we might have done like 40 visas plus. But majority of the people were those who've always wanted to live in Japan, and they also but they didn't want to, work for a company. So a lot of consultants, like marketing agencies, people in the travel space. We really got people who were kind of like missionaries in a way, like they really wanted to live in Japan. Nowadays, we do get that still, but typically it's usually someone on a personal side where they sold their house, luckily, like in Australia or the US or England, and they made, maybe like 70 million yen, 80 million yen, 700,000 Aussie, and they have the money for the business manager visa. Other ones are people who are usually, they already have a company and are a successful founder, and they want to expand their business to Japan. So we still get some like real passion for Japan, but not as strong as before.
Yeah. And I guess
startup visa is pretty much like we would get literally 10 inquiries a month. Now it's maybe one, maybe two, and usually they're misinformed.
Yeah, when I was in Kobe back in May, he was saying they get not much at all now, and especially because the business manager visa requirements are basically the same for most cities when it comes to the startup visa. As you mentioned before, Tyson, the only cities that are exempt to that rule is Shibuya and Yokohama, did you say?
Yes, Shibuya and Yokohama. But you, to be accepted there, you must have a very clear path to being able to get 30 million yen by the end of the startup visa, which is 1 to 2 years.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think it's safer just to have the 30 million ready to go.
Yeah. And for Shibuya, they usually want someone who can scale exponentially.
Right.
So, venture backed.
Yes. Cool. Yeah, so that's not to say business manager visa and startup visa is the only way into Japan, but I guess that's the easiest if it's founder led. So we can talk a little bit about other avenues as we go, but let's move on. So the things specifically that change, so like we said before, the capital requirement has changed from 5 million, around 45 Aussie or around 33 US, 33,000 US, to 30 million yen. So it's that's 6x what it used to be. But some of the other changes that they've made, in addition to that, include things like your requirement for JLPT, or you need to have, it's basically business level Japanese. You also need a business plan signed off. Was it by a CPA? Is that what I'm hearing?
It's typically an SME consultant, which is
Right.
called a Chusho Kiyo Shindanshi in
Okay.
Japanese.
Yep.
But SME consultant. And it is a license, it is an actual license.
Right. So it's a licensed person signing it off. One full-time employee and a dedicated office as well. So you can't use like a virtual office or a shared office, unfortunately. Anything else I've missed in those requirements? Tyson?
You've covered the main and the private office.
Yep.
And typically, ideally, the private office can have 2 people.
Right.
A home office it's a bit tricky. Because, if you have a full-time employee, like, would they come work in your home? That's a bit
Yep.
weird. So that one's a little bit tricky.
I guess the other thing that's changed is also the emergence of AI in Japan. I think, like, if you talk about SaaS, Japan was a little bit late to the market, or just late to adopt SaaS. But AI, on the other hand, I think it's a lot more prominent these days. And you see a lot more founders, or a lot more people, Japanese or international founders, entrepreneurs, doing something related to AI, even if it's just an AI wrapper, if it's related to software. But beyond that, obviously Japan is well known for physical AI. Robotics is a big one there. They've been known for robotics for a while now. So that is also a big one over there. What else are you seeing? I guess you're seeing a whole range of different businesses, especially if they're established overseas.
Yeah.
So
I think one is from my sales advisory side. I have 2 clients who develop agents for customers, and we've been able to close some famous companies where we would develop agents to help them improve their efficiency. So, and that's been really interesting, because before it's a bit hard to kind of get, before they'll be like, we'll talk to our systems integrator. But the issue they're facing now is the system integrators can't actually develop AI at, let's say, like a world-class level. And so my 2 clients who develop agents, who are both based in Japan and are world-class developers, like we're not having too much trouble getting clients.
I see.
And usually the scope is always expanding.
Right.
As well. So yeah, I think there's a pretty good opportunity, because the system integrators can't do AI.
Yep. Great. And yeah, of course, the weekend, you've seen obviously tourism, inbound tourism just spike exponentially, and that's obviously also good for incoming business as well. So if you are bringing money from abroad, it's a favorable exchange rate from most places, especially the US. So that is driving some interest over there. But I think the thing to think about with Japan is
I'll mention one thing, sir, about the weekend.
Yep.
It's we're in the weekend. So I actually have a few Japanese friends who work for American companies who do not do any work for Japanese audiences. So they're Japanese who speaks English, and they work for an American company targeting Americans.
Right.
Because the yen is so weak.
Right.
But for my friend, like, he basically makes double what he would have made in a Japanese company. Like, so yep, he's stuck for life they got the golden handcuffs. But I am seeing that happen more, and I've seen some recruitment agencies pop up who want to introduce high quality Japanese talent who can speak English to foreign companies.
So almost like your offshore developer model.
Pretty much.
Yeah, right. Yeah, well, I have a friend who runs his own development company, Japanese guy in Tokyo, and even he says when they hire developers like juniors from fresh out of university, what they pay for that is very comparable to offshore, from Vietnam, Philippines, India now. So yeah, and I know like the salary for software development just makes it one of those things where it's not very lucrative or not very attractive as a career option, unfortunately. Like most people want to join a management consulting firm instead, where they get much better money as opposed to software development. So we shall move on. But I think Japan, you've got to think about Japan in kind of two different ways now. It's more of a little bit of a premium market because of the changes to the visa. But also think about the localization, because Japan is very unique. Its culture and I guess it's a way of doing business. And it even has unique words to describe the way of doing business as well. So, I mean, the first thing I would do if Japan's on your radar, if you're looking to go there, looking to live there and relocate there, the language is probably the first thing you want to start to get accustomed to. Because if you don't have it, it'll just make it that much harder. I can tell you from living there. Tyson, you're what, JLPT N1, I think, so you're fluent. The difference between knowing Japanese and not knowing Japanese, what's your perspective on that?
Yeah, this is a good question, because I actually had one client who speaks zero Japanese, and we were able to go from 1,000 US MRR to 15,000 US MRR in 5 to 6 months in Japan without being based in Japan. But I would say it's very rare that someone can succeed without Japanese. The reason we succeeded was his product was so good that once we showed it to somebody, they would pretty much buy it.
Right.
Or they would say like, oh, I've been looking for this for years. And so we're able to do it. But other than that one case where for them, it's something they've been searching for 3 years, for the majority, the 99% of us, unfortunately, we're more of a should. Or we're selling a should or a could item, not a must item. And so, yeah, it'll take much more time, let's say, or speaking Japanese will help you communicate with the decision maker, not your champion. Because oftentimes the person you meet at the trade show or the first person you meet who shows a lot of interest, attention, oftentimes they're not the decision maker. And so Japanese will help you connect with the decision maker.
Yeah. I think you did a podcast with it was either the country manager of DiDi in Japan, or I can't remember. It was a couple of years back now. But the best case, or the best kind of example of a product that didn't go well versus a product that did go well is the Uber versus DiDi story, I think. So those of you who are not familiar, Uber, when they landed in Japan initially, what was it, like some 10, 15 years ago, they tried to launch the service without really understanding the market, without understanding how strong the taxi union was and how powerful they were in lobbying to the government. And unfortunately, Uber was not really able to make a dent in the Japanese market because to drive a taxi, you need an actual license. So to do the ride hailing service, it just wasn't going to work locally in Japan.
And they actually tried the same approach. I wasn't talked on the podcast, but I have a friend. I have a friend who is a consultant for Uber, in the beginning, and they told him, we're going to go with the same playbook where, let's say, we're going to just be ahead of the regulators.
Oh. But I mean, ultimately, DiDi did localize and did succeed a lot better than what Uber did. So
yep, they did partner with SoftBank, I think.
Right. But I mean, that's just another example of a good market entry strategy. So I think, anyway. So ultimately, the lesson to be learned is to localize for the Japanese market, but also understand, is your product something that will actually work over there? And there's a bunch of people you can talk to, including myself and Tyson, to get a better lay of the land. So just want to check in there. I know we had a few people join late, so don't worry, we're recording this, so you'll be able to catch up on the full session once we post the recording. But is there any questions so far? All good? Feel free to type them in the chat or interrupt anytime as well. Let's move on. Anything else you want to add before we keep going, Tyson? Or?
No, I think I'm good to go.
Okay. So probably one of the things to remember too is when you are building your first, I want to say, proof of concept, that kind of almost becomes like your Bible case study. So once you are able to secure a pilot or get your first 1 or 2 customers, that's almost like your starting point and your ability to be able to then go and speak to others. So having that initial social proof first is really important in Japan, I think, because that then helps to show that you are able to break into the market, that you can prove some demand for the service or the products that you're offering. So running a pilot, initially getting that first proof of concept is really critical in sort of breaking into the Japanese market. We'll cover that a bit more, I think, too, in Tyson's section around sales and marketing. But always good to think about that first. You really need to invest a lot of time into getting that first POC, I believe. So should you even go yet? Like I said, Japan's probably become a slightly more premium market now. So before October 2025, it was a lot easier for someone with a startup to go there, get the startup visa and launch a company. And the capital requirement was a lot lower. And they were a lot more lenient on business manager visas as well in that time. Now, since October 2025, and they've become a lot more stricter and they've raised the capital requirement and a lot of other changes, as we mentioned, Japan has become a much more, I want to say, premium market, or it should be seen as your second market, not your first. You almost want to think about proving demand at home or proving demand in the first market that you're targeting first. Have some capital behind you, or you've either raised at least probably your seed. Series A is probably ideal before you even consider looking at Japan, because there is a lot of investment in time, money, and you will need a lot of time, especially with the sales cycles, especially if you're targeting kind of the bigger corporates or enterprise kind of clients. There is a long sales cycle there. Speaking from kind of your lower level, entry level people all the way up to your decision makers. So I think Japan has really changed in terms of how you should see it as a startup founder, as a business owner. Any other things you want to add there, Tyson?
Yeah, I do agree that it should be seen as your second market or your third market, and that you really need to succeed in your home market. The exception would be where the technology is not needed in your home country and is desperately needed in Japan, is the only exception. And that one exception, which was a startup that I mentored in 500 Global, who developed robots to analyze structural damage in places where it would be too dangerous for humans to go. Basically, all the Japanese buildings were built 50 years ago. They have a lifespan of 50 years. They're in Korea, which it will happen in 10 years. So there's no market right now in his home country. It's in Japan. So in his case, it makes sense for Japan to be his first market because it doesn't exist back home for the next 10 years or 5 to 10. That would be the exception. And the other thought I would say for at least startups, I would say if you ain't Series A or pre-Series A at a minimum, go home. This is seeing over 30, probably 30 to 40 startups. I'm cool with that. This is from seeing over 30 to 40 startups with various accelerators I've been a sales and market entry advisor for. The success rate of the seed startups, majority were a waste of our time.
I see. Yeah, okay, that's good to know. So there's some extra context for anyone considering Japan. If there is a real need for your tech, then I guess, Japan has some issues around business succession planning. But I think, a few people have tried to solve that problem and had very little success. The agriculture industry probably is ripe for disruption, but again, they're very slow to take on any kind of change, structural or innovation. Medical devices, or even just the aging population, healthcare is probably another one. But again, very resistant to change. So you kind of it's a very slow process. But that is some areas you might want to think about if you are doing tech as well. Let's move on. I think some of the key things, and I guess you can talk to this better than I can, Tyson, but localizing a sales deck, as someone who did sales in Australia and Japan, I always found like word of mouth worked for me really well, whether it's B2C or B2B. So in that situation, a sales deck wasn't always important for me, but I know when it is like an official first meeting, and it's not word of mouth, for example, a sales deck I'm sure is much more important in that scenario. In Australia, when we do sales, a sales deck probably isn't that necessary, depending on the client. Most B2B clients, it's unnecessary. But in Japan, that's probably something you want to think about, especially if it's not a referral. So Tyson, what have you seen when it comes to the sales deck, localizing the sales deck, and also localizing landing pages for Japan too?
Yeah, I would say the landing page one isn't, I think it's something you should do, but I wouldn't say it's something that you must do. But for the sales deck and sales pamphlet, I would say that is a must do. And I've helped many, many clients close corporate deals using this method. And the main reason for that is two big ones. The first one is mainly your champion in the company usually isn't the decision maker. Usually, oftentimes, and also sometimes when the person who does research on your company isn't usually the decision maker. But typically in the US, the department leader, the bucho, would usually do the research themselves and contact you and schedule a demo and check things out. So in Japan, usually the decision maker does the research and reaches out to the company. In Japan, it does happen, but typically it's usually more of the underling or the non-decision maker who does the research. And so when they go, so I guess, and they'll go to your website, they will download the sales material, then they'll probably hand it off to their boss. They may even print it out for their boss, and the boss will read it in the train or taxi. And so that's why the sales deck is really useful. One, it's something they can print and give to their boss, and the boss can check it on the train or on a trip.
Right.
The other one too is also, I would assume that your champion or your I typically always assume that my contact in the company has no authority and is not good at sales, is not good at internal sales.
Okay.
I automatically assume that they cannot pitch your service really well internally. So by having a sales pamphlet, they can just use your pen and present your pamphlet internally and say, these are the features, these are their customers, this is what's special about them. But if you just kind of talk to them in the meeting and just hope they can magically sell your software internally, they probably will fail. I've also had cases where I've had to help my client coach their sales partner how to sell their software.
Okay.
And so I think really having the sales deck and making it very thorough, it makes it much easier to communicate the information in your head to someone else who would then communicate it to another person.
Yep.
So for those reasons, and the third one is if you actually do make it to the second meeting, probably your sales deck would be dispersed to many people, and having it in native Japanese and built in a format which Japanese are used to seeing will go a long way. But if you try to design it in American, Australian, Korean format, it comes off as weird. Like,
Right.
why don't they have this slide? And let's say any reason you give for someone to back out of a decision in Japan, someone will probably take advantage of that to back out of the decision.
Yeah, I see.
And so that's why it should be translated. The reason why I said landing page is a should, while the sales deck is a must. With the sales deck, you could use it with sales, outbound sales, trade shows, people you meet, or friend introductions. With the landing page, it's more for it's two uses. One, it's to confirm that you actually exist. And the second one is if you try to get people through marketing related, or where through SEO, where someone research, find your software, you definitely need a localized website with a localized sales pamphlet.
Right. But you also need it for the business manager visa application as well. Some kind of like even simple website.
It helps with the business plan. Like especially we're creating a business plan for a client to get it accepted by immigration. It helps, and it also helps for a bank account.
Right.
It is actually one of the listed items for a corporate bank account, and the website as well.
Perhaps one thing that Tyson was alluding to when he's talking about a sales deck too, I think in Western culture, when we build sales decks, we tend to be minimalists by nature. And so more of the focus is on us if we're presenting, especially if we're presenting a deck. If you're doing a pitch, if you're doing a pitch deck, if you're doing a presentation, we want to take the focus off the slides and onto us if we're speaking. In Japan, it's completely opposite. They want the nitty-gritty details, like very elaborate, intricate details in there. So it's almost like you can't be detailed enough in a Japanese sales deck. So you would probably find it's a slightly different way of working. They want to see the detail. They want to see the numbers. They want to see the graphs. They want to see, the things that you might consider perhaps inappropriate or too detailed from a Western point of view. The Japanese, on the other hand, probably want to see much more detail. So just something to keep in the back of your mind as well. Let's move on. So what setup actually takes, and I guess this is one aspect where Tyson can really give you more context and take you through, how it works, some of the different entity types as well. So I'll leave this to you, Tyson.
Cool. So I'll go give a quick rundown. If anyone wants more details, I'll be sending. We actually have. We just finished making a kind of a checker for this. Like, should I get a GK, a KK, or a branch office? We actually made a expensive tool online for that, which I'm going to copy and paste here in
Nice.
chat.
It's almost like a which path should I take assessment, if that's.
Yep.
Mm.
Okay. But yeah, so basically a GK is the cheapest and fastest. Cheapest in that the government stamp fee is 60,000 yen. If you are going for the business manager visa, it will be 210,000 yen. So after 8 or 9 million yen, you pay a 0.7% of the total capital for the stamp fee. But it starts off at 60,000 yen. So it is the cheapest. It's also the fastest because you don't need to get it notarized, and it will take 1 to 2 weeks after submission. And also, yeah, no annual let's say, I think you don't have to have like an owner's, let's say, meeting and send it off. And so GKs are, even companies like Amazon and Google are GKs in Japan, not a branch office. So typically they'll say you have less standing with enterprise clients, and it's kind of true, but we're finding more and more that it's actually not as big of a hurdle as it used to be. It is still a hurdle for getting government contracts, though. Regarding KK, yeah, any startup who wants to raise venture capital from Japanese investors will typically want a KK. Many Japanese, and there's a few Japanese investors who are okay with Delaware, but you have to be really good. Like, they really want you for them to deal with a Delaware corporation. So typically you would need to get a KK. This does help for getting government contracts. Also, when you're looking for employees, it's less and less nowadays, but still sometimes relevant, where a parent would be concerned if their child is joining a GK. And it's not as common anymore, but I still occasionally hear about it from my clients from time to time.
Okay.
And yeah, but for KK, the government stamp fee is 150,000 yen minimum. Also, you're going to have to pay around 40 or 50K for an attestation of the articles of incorporation. And if you follow in person, and I'll answer the question in the chat. If you do it in person, you have to add. So basically, it's about 250,000 just for government stamp fees. Regarding branch office, yeah, the big thing is the parent is still the owner of the company, or was it? Sorry, the parent company sets up a branch. There is no separate legal person, meaning there's no limited liability. The liability goes to the parent in the home country. But that also creates a bigger problem because there's no liability in Japan, and it's based with an overseas entity. Many Japanese banks will reject your application. And if you don't get the Japanese bank account, very likely you will not be able to get a subsidy or a grant or a loan, because it goes back to the same thing. The liability is overseas, and Japanese companies, rightly so, don't want to deal with that headache. And it also applies to companies as well. Like, if you have a branch office, they may not want to deal with your branch office. Cool. And regarding Delaware, what about an Australian-owned company? Very rare. Typically, it's Japan. If they make an exception, Delaware. And so I'll say there's 3 categories: Japanese only, Japanese and Delaware, and then below that, even less, is other. So your startup has to be really, 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 really good. They really, really want you. But if you're just kind of average, they'll probably just choose someone with Delaware or American, or Japanese.
I think, like, if you're considering accelerator programs in Japan too, most of the time they require you to have a KK, Kabushiki Gaisha, as well. I remember one of my friends who was in Sydney, he's originally from Japan, but he got on the J-Star program with Jetro. They do a kind of a bit of a global startup program in Tokyo. They take them to San Francisco. They help you connect with angel investors in the US. And at the time, he basically needed a KK in the space of a week to be eligible to apply for the program. So in most cases, not all accelerators, but a lot of the accelerators in Japan, you also need to think about incorporating Kabushi Gaisha as well. So just might want to check if you're looking at any accelerators in Japan. I think some you're not required, but I know there are some where they do require you to have an entity or incorporate to be incorporated before you apply as well. So just something else to think about. Shall we move on? Is there any other questions there? Maybe it's just a good check-in point while we're here. That is a topic that I'm sure there is some questions on or some confusion about, especially the different entities. If you are thinking about which entity is right for you, Tyson shared that link in the chat as well. And we'll put that in the details of the recording as well. Let's move on. So you want to talk a little bit about subsidies and loans and no tax advice, but tax in general.
Yeah, just for subsidies and loan, typically you need a Japanese bank account. And there are subsidies, especially for green technology. There's a lot of, let's say, subsidies for that. There's also subsidies for small businesses in Japan to get, let's say if you want to develop like a system to make your business more efficient, or if you want to invest in marketing, there are subsidies for that. Grants are typically for more hiring related. And so let's say if you have a part-time employee who you want to hire full-time, there's usually a grant where they'll pay some of the salary, or they'll pay like 500,000 yen or 700,000 yen or something like that. For taxes, yeah, it's even if you don't make any money, let's say you still have to pay a minimum of 70,000 yen usually for the local residence tax. And the other one is, if anyone here is on a business manager visa, your accountant might not actually be a good person to do your taxes, because tax accountants are obsessed with saving you money on taxes. And so you might, let's say, which might actually hurt your business manager visa renewal application. And so for us, a growing sector has been helping our business manager visa clients also with their taxes as well through our partners. Great. With our partner accountants, with the business manager visa renewal in mind.
So to make it more accepted, or I guess more appropriate for immigration when they renew as well.
That is correct.
Yeah.
Because a tax accountant is not a visa expert.
Yeah, but I've heard of stories where people, they used an initial immigration lawyer in Japan to get their initial business manager visa, but then now because of all the changes, when they went to the same person to renew, they didn't want to touch them, and so sometimes then they needed to seek out other help from someone else. And I'm sure in that situation, Tyson, you guys would be more than happy to at least chat to those kind of people, because
yeah, for sure. I would say 30% of our work is fixing work.
Because I guess with the new requirements, where there's any doubt, I think immigration lawyers would prefer to play it safe and probably not accept you as a client in some situations. Okay, let's move on. Question from Richard. So, yeah, do you want to take that, Tyson, about renewals?
Yes, that is correct, actually. There are some people who had the 5 million yen. The Japanese government mentioned that the new rules would happen from 2028. And so even though they have 5 million yen in capital, their business manager visa renewal was denied. That has happened. I've heard there's several, it hasn't happened to one of our clients, but what I've heard as some of the reasons were, one is the person didn't hire an employee, was one rejection case I've heard of. The other one was like, the company's not making any money, or another one was where their accountant tried to save them so much money on taxes where they didn't pay any taxes. And that looked really bad to immigration. So those were three reasons, let's say not profitable, not paying any taxes, and the third one is not hiring any employees. But there isn't, nothing has been announced officially.
And then Richard asks about targeting service businesses more than regular businesses.
Because a lot of the people who did do service businesses, at least I think the ones that we received before the change, their goal was to live in Japan more than to run a business in Japan. And so that's probably the, let's say, that's probably the reason that, and also in their case for the service businesses, there's not too many service businesses who are hiring staff as well. So that probably might explain that case, Richard. But in our case, we usually tell our clients we start preparing for the business manager visa renewal 6 months in advance, because we really have to think about, let's say, making, and also kind of getting the entrepreneur to show a little bit more traction, or to show that, they are serious about creating a business in Japan, not just wanting to live in Japan, which explains the service situation, I think.
We might come back to your question some in a sec, just conscious of time and probably wanting to just get through a bit more of the slides, and then we'll take some Q&A at the end. So sales and marketing that works. Tyson, you want to take this?
Sounds good, yeah. Or for Misha's question, I would worry about that after you actually can get a client. That's getting the client is harder than the harder part. But Richard answered your question. But yeah, you can bill in US or AUD if they really want your service. Really, really want your service. So I've seen exceptions to everything if they really, really want it. Yeah, so for B2B, you're selling to a process. I think I've already discussed how to arm your champion with the sales pamphlet, and sometimes also coaching your sales champion. Yeah, land the lighthouse and coast. So that's one tactic. But yes, it's do whatever you can to get the first client, sometimes even doing it at cost. And let's say from once you, or I'll say it's more of a land and expand strategy. So do what you can to land, then expand gradually. Okay, sell the downside first. Yeah, so with the sales pamphlet, yeah, so for example, one good case is the dead location, the servers are based in Japan. Two, we can provide technical support during these hours. Three, this person is your account director. There's many more things that I typically like to add, but those are some good ones. Show up in person, yeah. So let's say trade shows do work. Right now, Code Outbound is not working that well. There are some, I have a few cases that have worked, but majority of cases aren't working so great. But trade shows can work. The problem is most people don't know how to do trade shows. They go to a trade show and hope that someone, their prince, they hope that their prince will come and save them or help them out, but that's not how it usually works. Usually how I approach trade shows is I try to get, 30% of my schedule booked before the trade show even starts. So yeah, I think people need to be more systematic about trade shows, but it's a good way to meet in person, build trust, and then have a second or third meeting after that and accelerate the deal. Yeah, get your own initial customers. Yeah, the one thing like I just annoyed of foreign companies saying is like, can you get us our initial can you get us our initial customers in Japan? And it's like, no, that's too much work. Like to get a Japanese company to trust a foreign company, like that is just so much work. And they want other people to do it, do the hard work for them, and then they'll do the easy work afterwards. It's like, I mean, you're gonna have to pay me a lot. You're gonna have to pay me a crazy amount of money to do like this much work. So usually how I like to do things is I help the client create a sales pamphlet. I then introduce them to consultants in that industry who are already trusted by the corporations, already have deals with corporations, and they would sell to your client. And yeah, it depends on the, is it deep tech? Is it SaaS?
Yeah. Maybe I'll add to in person makes a huge difference. If you're talking to someone online versus in person, yeah, the difference can sometimes be night and day. And what else was I going to say? I think one of the other things that people forget, so outreach, I think across the board, no matter where you are across the globe, effectiveness has gone down. That's why referrals and introductions are so powerful these days. So maximize your referral network or word of mouth network as well.
And that's why I like to build the Japanese sales pamphlet. And then when we actually talk to the consultants who have the customers, they know that we're not some bozo company who is going to waste their time.
Right.
Trust me, like I would say among I get probably 40, 50 a month. I would say 80 to 90% is crap.
Mm.
And so, and these consultants are also bombarded by crap. And so when you come in with the Japanese sales pamphlet, like, okay, these people are probably kind of serious. And then we'll try to see if they could sell it to their customer. And then try to help them, coach them to send it. And then once we get our initial 5 to 10 clients through this route, we'll then take the revised sales pamphlet, the landing page, and we'll go to a sales partner and say, we've already gotten sales. We know what they want. This is the pitch. Can you sell our product? And your odds of getting a better sales partner increases a lot. Otherwise, what I typically see is a company will pay someone to get their initial sales for them. They'll pay 300,000. They'll pay maybe 2,500 Australian, maybe around 3,000 Australian to maybe 5,000 Australian a month. They'll do some cold calling. They'll tap some people in their network, but it's a lot of cold outreach. And then they don't get the clients. Like after 6 months, we spent all this money, we didn't get any results. And it's like, I told you so, and you deserve it. But so that's why I find that my approach is the most cost-effective approach. And unless you're like OpenAI or 11 Labs where
right.
Yeah, they don't need my help.
So kind of AI, etc.
For B2C, is anyone here in B2C? If you could just put in the chat. If no one's here in B2C, I'll just skip it, or you could, if for anyone watching the video, you can reach out to me. So I did create a mid-size B2C business in Japan that employs 200 people. Okay, now I guess no one in B2C.
Move on. So the order that matters, I guess it's
Tyson,
just like
sorry to interrupt you. I would love to hear your perspective on the B2C side.
Let's go back.
Cool. So yeah, different. So for B2C, I think Google search, Google Maps works very effectively for B2C. Instagram and Meta ads works very well. The price you'll pay per impression is usually 50, I would say probably 33 to 50% cheaper than the US. And Japanese people do use those platforms. Yahoo can be pretty good for targeting adults in their 50s and 60s if you want to target the older generation. So Yahoo Japan usually gets about 33%. Or I find with my own clients looking at their with my own clients and analyzing their SEO, around 30% of their traffic is still Yahoo to this day, and 70% Google. In some cases, Kansai might actually be 40% for Yahoo, 60% Tokyo, but it can range. But Yahoo is still relevant. And for B2C, Line is great. I love Line. Emails will typically get a 40 to 50% open rate, while Line will get an 80 to 90% open rate. So I highly recommend Line Business. It's worth the 5,000 yen per month. And also, I think with AI Advanced, they do offer Line API integrations with the business plan. And so Twitter can kind of work, but I find Twitter can work, but I typically prefer Twitter for B2B, or like when I really want to reach like technical people. Nope. Yeah, I think I already covered Japanese SEO already. And yeah, information density. Yeah, so like landing pages in Japan sometimes are, the funny way to describe it is, in the US, you might have a website with like 5 tabs, and sometimes in Japan, it works. Some companies actually have a one landing page, which is the 5 tabs essentially combined into one landing page. So it's terrible for page loading speed, but it pretty much covers everything, and sometimes can take like 20 minutes, 30 minutes to read the whole thing. And sometimes they'll hit on the same important key points 3 or 4 times, but there is a unique design style for that. And yeah, no, reviews is Japanese consumers do look at reviews. And so one thing I didn't mention is for people in their like late 20s and 30s, maybe 40s, they do use Instagram as a search engine. And so so for some B2C products, they'll actually search for you on Instagram rather than Google. Cool. But that's a summary of B2C.
Cool. Let's move on. So we'll cover this quickly, and then we'll open up for questions. Okay. So yeah, I guess it's just like any startup. You're looking for evidence or proof. You're trying to find that first customer, or at least try to have some conversations while you're abroad to test if there is any interest. Look at what entity would work for you, and you can do that by checking out Tyson's cool little tool, I think. If Japan really is on your radar, make sure you've got validation at home, at least product market fit, and you are kind of, at least, he said pre-series A, I would say at least seed, but some kind of financial backing behind you to support your existence in Japan, because it can be long sales cycles as well. And then scale from there. So I think we've kind of covered that already. So let's just move on in the interests of time. So finally, so if you want to connect with us, Tyson, if you want to share your LinkedIn, that's probably the best. I'll share mine in the chat as well. But if there are any questions, now is a good time to ask as well. feel free to speak up or write them in the chat as well.
I was just curious about the market situation in Japan. Like I've seen the odds of the average business succeeding in Japan is dropping significantly, and a lot of businesses catering to old age people or healthcare is actually going up in terms of odds of success. Um, Businesses are becoming more risk averse. They've always been risk averse, but it's become more risk averse than it used to be. So any thoughts on that and how the whole uh, situation is changing in Japan?
Yeah, so I think the industries that are hot at the moment is still travel, real estate, and anything targeting the elderly. And so even some so like one thing that has been picking up is also line e-commerce, where you can build a e-commerce site through line, and you can target the 50 and 60-year-olds who have lots of money and disposable income. So those are the ones that are performing well. Other ones on the B2B side, at least with my development clients, we have been having really good success for doing AI development at the moment because, yeah, like explained earlier. So AI development is still pretty hot, especially if you're very good at it. And you can kind of get and show results to corporations because the corporations with the money, they do, let's say, we're finding that it's less about convincing them that they need AI. It's more convincing them that we're the right person to provide the service is, I think, the mind shift that I've noticed, at least through my clients. The other thing in the landscape, though, is the one thing that everyone is struggling with is finding Japanese staff. Finding Japanese staff has usually, I find that to be the biggest bottleneck for the business manager visa clients that we help. And yeah, I think pretty much everyone is struggling to find Japanese talent is probably the big one. But in terms of businesses failing, yes, there is, I think in the B2C space, parents, families, they have less disposable income because of increasing prices. Like food prices. I don't know the exact numbers, but it feels like it's like a 50%, 20 to 50% increase. Like, yeah, like a lot of things seems like have increased like 50%. Like rice was like 2,000, now it's like 3,200 or something. So it's like a 50% increase in food, but wages have not increased with the same rate. So I'm finding with some of my B2C clients where the parents, they can't afford to send their kids to as many learning things. Like they can say each child can choose one thing. Like we'll pay 10,000 yen per child. The other thing that is really sad too is because the yen is weak, prices are rising. There are more Japanese family households where now both parents have to work. And so what I'm finding with some clients is like sometimes our best performing ads to parents is how we save them time, not how good our service is. Is like how good our service is not as important as us saving them time. So so I think, yeah, the parents, so I think the Japanese consumer is having a hard time for the B2C side. Consumer spending does feel like it's decreasing if you're targeting 20, 30, and 40-year-olds. But based on what I hear, 50s and 60s is hot, a hot market. I have a friend who runs he runs a line e-commerce shop or e-commerce platform online only, and he gets to see all the data. So, Richard, I hope I answered your question. Did I answer your question?
I mean, yeah, I mean, you hit it on the money right there. With you're absolutely right. Like tourism industry is always going to be doing well, at least for as long as Japan has a good image. In healthcare, old age, I think you missed the succession business. The succession businesses are
Oh,
like
yeah.
also, yeah, they're also hot
Yes.
cake right now. Yeah.
Yeah, so it ended up the succession. There's a lot of foreign companies who wanted to get involved in it, private equity. It ended up not monumenting too much. The main reason is the Japanese seller does not want to sell to a foreign buyer because of concerns of how they're going to do with the business. And there's even cases where the foreign buyer will offer them exactly how much they wanted, and they'll still say no. And also, foreigners would try to go directly. You have to go through a broker. So, yeah, so there's been a lot of issues on the succession planning side, that side. Also on the Japanese side, where the children doesn't want to take over the business. So for that reason, succession planning has not gone as well as most people would think it would have gone, based on a pure view of maximizing revenue. Or meaning, like, you would assume that all owners want to maximize revenue, but that is not the case. And I heard this from a private equity firm that did 6 months of market research, specifically on succession planning.
I think succession planning is it's not efficient for foreigners trying to do the business, because the Japanese don't easily trust foreigners as much as they do their own. So if you have a local Japanese face to run the business, I think it would be more successful.
Okay. Any more questions before we wrap up? Tyson has kindly shared his LinkedIn if you want to connect with him, if you're not connected with him. So have I, if you need a read on your idea or if you want more details about landing in Japan. Otherwise, that's it. Thanks everyone for attending. Appreciate your time. Hopefully you got something out of it. And we'll do another one probably in a couple of months, just to probably focus on a few more specific areas. So look out for another one in the next couple of months, where we will probably focus a little bit more on the product side of things as well. Otherwise, thank you for attending, and yeah, feel free to reach out if myself or Tyson can be of any help. Thanks, Tyson, being a part of this webinar and generously offering your time as well.
And thanks for listening.
Thank you. Great. Thanks, guys. See ya.